Just have to think 14 moves ahead, that's all.
So you've just bought yourself a Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 6 and you want to maximize its potential on day one. Well, this video has been designed so that you can make it so.
Make it so.
And this one is part one of a 3-part Galaxy Z Flip 6 series. Part 2 will be intermediate and the third video will be the expert settings. And don't worry, there are some hidden gems and secret settings within this video which you're definitely going to want to learn. So let's stop wasting time and let's get straight into it. This is a box fresh Z Flip 6, so it's on all of its default settings. So this is exactly how it should look when you get it. Now, when you're on the cover screen, if you hold your finger on the fingerprint reader, you can unlock the device. And if you hold your finger down on the screen, you'll see you do have some preloaded wallpapers, which are not that great, to be honest. So let's sort that out. So to customize the cover screen wallpapers, jump into your settings, scroll down until you see cover screen settings. And here, if you go to manage, you can get rid of all the rubbish wallpapers that you don't want and hit done. Now go to add new, and you can use photos from your gallery, and you can even use the generative AI if you want. We're going to come back to that in a moment. Let's start with the gallery. Now, what's interesting about the cover screen wallpapers is they can be carousels. So for example, if I choose a series of photos, let's say those two and this one, and hit done, those 3 wallpapers are now linked to this one cover screen. And every time you open and close the phone, it will switch between those 3 wallpapers, and you can add even more if you want to. But for now, I just want to show you how to customize the clock and some of the information on the screen. So the clock right now is the default one. If you tap it, you can change it to a different style. For example, this one, which works well for this picture. Once you've chosen a clock that you like, you can change the font of that clock as well. And if you want to, you can even change the color of the clock. One word of advice here is that you choose colors that stand out against the background. You don't want that to be the same color as the background, otherwise you won't be able to read the time. Now don't hit done because that will close this page. If you hit back, you can now customize some other things. For example, up here in the top right corner, you have battery. If you go to this, you can show the battery level on the cover screen. And if you want to, if you tap the camera icon here, you can change this to the torch instead of the camera. So now this one's set up how I want it. I'm just going to hit done here. And that's now saved as one of the cover screen wallpapers. Now I'm going to add a second one. This time I'm going to use the dark side characters. And once again, I can customize the clock and even have a different clock for this particular cover screen. And there is the option to add different color filters if you want to change the image up a little bit. So now that that's been set up, whenever the cover screen goes to sleep and wakes up again, it will be a different one of the images that I just chose for that particular cover screen. And if you hold your finger down on the cover screen, you can switch to the light side ones. And the same thing applies here. So you can really get creative with this and add several different images to the cover screen and have them in a picture carousel format. Now, before we move on to the next one, let me show you one more cover screen trick. So if we go to add new, this time I'm just going to choose one photo and hit done. When you do this, you get a few more options. For example, the option to add a picture frame, and you can see how it's added this kind of shape over the image. That one works pretty well. So I'm going to go with that one. Going to drag the clock up to the top, maybe make it a bit smaller. And once again, we can change the color, change the font and all that stuff as well. Once again, you do have the option to show the battery level here if you want to. And if you really want to, you can get the phone to suggest the style for the image as well. And there is one more hidden little feature here, which I want to show you. So let's say we go with this one. If you go to frame, at the bottom, you'll see erase background. That will just cut me out of the image with my beer, and then I can change the color of the actual cutout as well, which is pretty cool. So I'm just going to move this clock up here. There we go. A fully customized cover wallpaper. This one won't switch through images like the carousel ones. It's just a static image. So when you get a new phone, one of the worst things that could happen to you is losing it. That could be a real nightmare. So let's stack the deck in your favor. Do this. Swipe up and go to your Samsung folder. Inside this Samsung folder, you will find the Find app. Go to this and enable it. You will need to give permission for it to allow all the time. That way it will be discoverable even if it's not on a network. So the way this works is if anybody with a modern Android phone passes by near your phone, wherever it happens to be lost, it will update on the Google map and that way you'll be able to find it. And there is one more little tip that can reduce the chances of your phone getting lost. Hold your finger down on the display, go to Wallpaper and Style, go to the lock screen, and then here at the bottom of the lock screen, you'll see contact information. If you put an email address here, if someone finds your phone, they'll be able to see your email address on the lock screen. And hopefully they'll get in contact with you to tell you that they have your phone, unless they're a complete. So when you first boot up your phone, this is going to be your default layout on your home screen. And you can see straight away, there's tons of wasted space. So here's how we can change that. If you pinch or hold your finger down on an empty part of the screen, go to settings here, and you have a bunch of options to customize the grid. It has got quite a big inner display, so I do recommend you do this. Change the home screen grid to 5x6. That way we can have more apps and more widgets per page. And at the same time, it frees up an extra space here on the dock. So let me just fast forward a bit and sort this home screen out. Okay, there we go. That's much better. And as you can see, I've got way more apps on the home screen now, so less scrolling back and forwards to find things. And you'll also notice I have a fifth app here on the bottom row as well. Now this bottom row is very, very important. And you might notice that I've added the Samsung Galaxy Internet browser here as well. And that's for a very good reason. Even though I use Chrome most of the time, this has a very powerful tool built into it. So here's a bonus tip. Check this out. Open the Samsung Internet Explorer. So next time you're browsing the internet and you come across a page that's full of text and you just cannot be bothered to read it, well, you don't have to, because you can get AI to summarize it using the Samsung Internet Explorer app. See the little sparkly stars at the bottom? Whenever you see that, that means there's some Galaxy AI available. If you tap that and hit OK, you have the option to summarize or translate. So I'm going to summarize. The phone will read the entire web page for you and then sort it into some nice, concise bullet points. Now, if the bullet points just created aren't giving you enough information for what you're researching, you do have the option to expand on these bullet points by hitting this icon here and going to detailed. Now, if you hit done, it will summarize again, but it will add a bit more in-depth detail to that summary. So if you followed step 2 about customizing the size of the grid, you probably have a bit of extra space to play with now. So let me show you how to add widgets to your home screen. So if you hold your finger down on an empty space, at the bottom here, you'll see the widget option. If you tap that, you'll see all of the available widgets on your phone at present. As you install more apps, you'll have more third-party widgets to play with, but some of the best ones here are the official Samsung ones. For example, the digital well-being app is very good. It can allow you to keep an eye on how much you're using your phone and what apps you're using a lot of. Now, once you've added the widget, if it is an official Samsung one, there's a cool little feature here, which not many people know about. If you hold your finger down on it, go to settings, you can actually change the transparency of the widget. So you can make the background completely invisible if you want to. And as this one starts to populate, you'll have different colors and things like that, and it does look really cool. Okay, so let's take your widget game to the next level. Something you need to learn how to set up is widget stacks. This is where you have multiple widgets stacked on top of each other. Now, the quickest way to do this is to hold your finger down on a widget that you've already created, and then you'll see the option here to create stack. And once you've done that, it will show you all of the widgets that are available that can be stacked on top of that one. Now, depending on the shape of the widgets, there might be more or less options, but for this particular one, we can add the battery widget if we want to. Hit add, and now we have 2 widgets. And if I hold my finger down again and go to edit stack, you can add even more. So setting widgets up like this allows you to do more using less space on your home screen. One thing to keep in mind though is try and keep these higher up the screen or very low at the bottom of the screen, because when you're swiping between the home pages, you don't want to be swiping the widget stacks by accident. So now let's customize your main home screen wallpaper. If you pinch on the home screen, go to Wallpaper and Style in the bottom left corner, and then go to Change Wallpapers. If you scroll down, you'll see this section here, Create with AI. For this one, we're going to use generative. Now, using this particular feature, you can create something truly unique for your phone that nobody else will have. And this is how you do it. So choose a theme. There's a bunch of different ones here. And to get an idea of what they look like, you can scroll through here. So for example, let's go to mineral. Now it has a default prompt at the bottom of the screen, and you can customize this prompt in the areas that are highlighted. So we can change it from crystalline to, let's say, fluorite. And then instead of neutral hues, let's change this to vibrant hues and hit generate. Now, if you get this notification here at the bottom that says minors are not allowed to use this service, that's because your Google account hasn't been verified. Anyone under the age of 13 isn't allowed to use generative AI on Galaxy devices. So you have to verify your age. So to solve this problem, if you do run into it, you need to navigate to this particular Google page where you verify your age. I'll post the URL in the description in case you do have this problem when using Gemini/Galaxy AI. Once you're on this page, you can verify using an ID, a selfie, or a credit card. I'm just going to do the selfie because it's easier. So now that's done, let's get back to where we were. Pinch on the home screen, go to wallpaper, change wallpaper, scroll down to create AI, and then here we can choose a template, go with the mineral again, change it to something random, and change the hues to something vibrant and generate. And now it's working its magic. And as you can see, it will give you a bunch of different options to choose from, and we can set that straight away on the home and lock screen. So definitely play around with the generative AI. And now let's move on to the next tip, which is customizing the lock screen. So when you add a wallpaper, it will pop up with this screen, which is your lock screen setup. So here you can customize the clock. Very similar to what we did on the cover screen. We can choose the style, we can choose the color at the bottom, and we can choose the font. So play around with these, choose something that makes sense for you. And do not hit done at this point because then it will just close the screen. And it's important because there's a lot more we can do here on this particular screen. So where it says widgets, these are lock screen widgets, and a very, very useful one to have here is the battery level. So if you have other Samsung devices, you can keep an eye on your watch battery, your Buds battery, and things like that. You can also add the calendar. So if there's any upcoming events, you can pin that up here as well. And you can have your reminders or your health notifications or whatever you want really. And then also underneath, if you tap the little notification bar, you can actually change how these notifications appear. Right now it's icons only, but if you want to, you can set details. And here, once you set the details, you can customize the transparency on these as well. I guess this one would depend on what wallpaper you're using. I'm going to leave it at that sort of 50% mark. And the last two things you might want to change on the lock screen is the shortcuts at the bottom. So by default, you have phone. You can change that to whatever you want pretty much. And then you also have camera. You can change that to torch or something if you want to. So there we go. We now have a custom wallpaper and a custom lock screen with custom widgets. And already the phone has been transformed into something a bit more interesting, but we can go even further with this. So let's say this wallpaper that you just set up, you want to add a bit more situational context to it. You can do that with Samsung Galaxy. Check this out. If you pinch the home screen, go to wallpaper and style one last time, and go to photo ambient. Here you can try the photo ambient mode, and this will use the weather in your area to create contextual effects on that wallpaper. Whenever it's raining and you look at your lock screen, it will show rain on the wallpaper. And if it's snowing, it will show snow. Okay, so now we've almost fully completed the customization of the home screens. Now let's go back to the cover screen and do a bit more customization there. And cheers to you for making it this far into the video. So check this out. If you hold your finger down on the cover screen and swipe across to the right, you'll notice you have these pages. These are widget pages and they can be customized. To customize them, all you need to do is hit edit, and then it's going to open the settings page on the big screen. Another way to get to this settings page is to go to your settings as normal, go to cover screen, and then here if you go to widgets. So right now you don't have many widgets set up by default. And what you can do is choose the most useful widgets to you and drag them up onto the widgets page. And there are different sizes. And if you use the smaller size, you can have up to 4 of them per page. 4x4 size widgets will take up an entire page. And if you add one, it will create another page. And if you've added a widget that you don't like the look of, just hit the red minus in the top right corner and you can delete it. And now when you swipe across, you'll have access to all of these quick widgets that you just set up. Now let's say you've set up tons of them and you want to view them all at once. All you need to do is pinch the screen and you can get an overview of all of your widgets very quickly. That can save you from swiping 4 or 5 times to get to them. Now, something you might have just noticed when I was setting up the widgets is that I added the Samsung voice recorder to one of the pages, and that's for a very good reason. The Samsung voice recorder has some very useful AI tools within it. So let me show you those very quickly. So once you've captured some audio using the Samsung voice recorder, what you can actually do here is transcribe the audio into text, and then you can copy that into your homework. For reference purposes, of course. And once transcribed, you now have the option to summarize the transcription into bullet points, similar to what we did with the website summaries. And what's really great about doing this is it does give you keywords here at the top, so you can jump to specific points in the transcript that you're looking for. So you can see how this can be very useful, and you can further expand on this. If someone's talking in another language, you do have the option to transcribe from their language into English and vice versa. So once you've done that, you'll actually see the English version of the text and then below it, the translated version of the same text. And if you're wondering what languages are available, if you go to add languages here, this will download the language packs directly to the phone. And these are the ones that are available at this present time. There's quite a few. All right, now a more fun one to play around with and show off to your Apple friends who won't believe their eyes when they see what the Galaxy phone can do now. Check this out. Go to a photo in your photo gallery, and then here, if you hit the little sparkly AI star thing at the bottom, what you'll now see is the sketch to image at the bottom and the portrait studio at the top. The sketch to image one just pops up very briefly, but the icon's always there in the bottom left corner. So if you tap that, you can now draw on the image. So I'm going to draw a little sun up here. This works way better if you have the S Pen. And once you hit generate, it will use AI to try and figure out what it was that you were trying to draw, and it will try to add that into the image. So it's added a bit of a lens flare in this one. It's added a moon in this one, and a sunspot in this one, and a bigger moon in this one. And you can get real creative with this. You can draw mustaches, sunglasses, hats, all kinds of things, and it will add it into the image. And you'll be quite surprised with how good it looks sometimes. So this is definitely one that you can show off to your iPhone friends. And when they see this, they might be like, "Not true. That's impossible." And you can be like, "Yes, it is," but not on iOS. Until they decide to copy it one day, probably. Anyway, on to the next ones. And these next few tips are time-saving settings that I think you should definitely set up on day one. Let's start with this one. When you swipe up from the app drawer, you'll notice it's all randomly organized. What happens by default is the phone tries to figure out what it is you might want to use next. The better way to do this, in my opinion, is to alphabetize the app drawer. And to do this, just hit the 3 dots in the top right corner and go to sort, and then go to alphabetical order. That way now, when you're looking for something, you know roughly where it's going to be based on the name of the app. Now, something else that I think you'll appreciate, unless you're a fan of Bixby, is this next tip. And if you're wondering, what the hell is a Bixby? Well, exactly. So check this out. If you hold the power key down on the side of the phone, that by default does wake Bixby, which is a voice assistant, but it's not quite as good as the Google Assistant or Gemini or ChatGPT. And if you never use it, then there's really no point of it being mapped to the power key. So let's change that. Go into your settings, scroll down to the advanced features section, and then here you'll see side button. Right now, push and hold on the side key is Bixby. If we change it to power key, now this opens up a few more options, which are far more useful in my opinion. So you can power down, restart, you can make emergency calls, and if you input your medical information, if someone finds your phone and holds the power key down, they can find out some basic medical information about you, for example, your blood group or allergies and things like that. And while we're on the side key settings, something else that I think is going to save you a lot of time in the future when it comes to paying for things is to remap the double push of the side key to the Google Wallet. This is something I use pretty much every day now. So when it comes to paying for things in shops, all I do is double tap the power key, which is conveniently the fingerprint sensor on this phone as well. And straight away, I can pay and get away real quick. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't actually switch my phone off very often. But this is not a good thing, because from time to time, it's a good idea that you reboot and refresh your device. And actually, you can get your phone to do this automatically for you. when the time is right. Here's how you do it. Go to your settings, go to the device care section, and here you'll find the auto optimization settings. And at the bottom of this page, you'll see that the auto restart is switched off. Now you can schedule your own time for it to auto restart, or you can restart when needed. That way, if the phone is running particularly slow because there's too much going on in the background over the course of a couple of weeks or whatever, it will just decide, okay, this is the best time to reboot and refresh. And don't worry, it won't do it whilst you're in the middle of using the phone. Most likely this will happen at night. The phone does take some time to learn your usage patterns, but once it does, it will figure out the absolute best time to do it. Now, another very useful feature to switch on day one for security purposes is this one. Go to your settings, security and privacy, and straight away, if this is not on, you will probably see this icon right here. So go to app security and app protection and turn this on if you have it. This might be region specific, but what this does is it scans installs of new apps just to make sure they haven't got any viruses. And it will also scan the existing apps on the phone. And being a brand new phone, I'd be very surprised if it finds any. So this one is a quick tip to help you speed up your device on day one by sacrificing a little bit of the onboard storage, which you probably have plenty of if you've got a fresh phone. Check this out. Go back into your settings. Go to device care once again. This time we're going to tap on this section here that says memory. And at the bottom of this page here, you'll see RAM plus. If you set this to 8, this will expand the amount of RAM by an extra 8 gigs, which is a ton. And this will just help the backgrounding and multitasking abilities of your phone. If later on you find out you're running out of space on your phone in terms of storage, you can turn this down. Now, something else that I think is very, very important to do on day one is to register your first finger and thumb on both hands. It's likely that when you set up your phone the first time, you probably just registered one finger. If you did, then you definitely want to do this. Go into your settings, security and privacy again. And at the top here, where it says lock screen, tap here and add the extra fingerprints. Just tap the plus button here and get scanning. Okay, so here's the last few bonus tips for you guys. You can actually make your display look a little bit better if you do this. Go into your settings, go to display, and then here you'll see adaptive brightness. It's a good idea to have this on. I don't switch this on for the videos because it messes with the cameras, but you should definitely switch that on. But what I wanted to show you is this, the adaptive color tone. So this will adjust the color tone of the screen based on the ambient light conditions, and this can improve how the display looks and actually make the colors appear to be more natural. Now here's another bonus tip for you guys, and it is the circle to search. Now if you're not familiar with this, you should definitely be using it because it can be a lifesaver, quite literally. True story now, I was in Italy recently and I got into an Uber, and this giant bug landed on my shoe in the back of the Uber, and I wasn't sure if this thing was dangerous or not. So what I did was I held my finger down on the home button, drew around this bug, and figured out that it was one of these. And actually, when I read the description, apparently these things feed on blood. So I showed the photo to my cab driver and told him to pull over so we could get this damn thing off my shoe. It was giant. The moral of the story here is that you should be using circle to search whenever you want to search anything, because it is fantastic. And if you're using gestures instead of the navigation buttons, you just hold your finger down on the navigation bar. Now here's a couple more bonus tips, and these ones are more tailored for people who've just made the switch from an iPhone. So go into your settings, go to navigation bar and switch this to gestures. This will make the navigation exactly the same as the iPhone without using the buttons like you just saw. And you just got this line here at the bottom instead, and you already know how the gestures work. Now, if you've just got a Samsung Galaxy phone and you come from an iPhone, you might find the Samsung keyboard a little bit more tricky to use. Now, if that is the case, a very quick fix for this is to go into the Play Store, search for the Gboard, which is Google's official keyboard, and this works very, very similar to the Apple keyboard, and actually it may even be a little bit better in my opinion. And then here all you need to do is enable Gboard. And at the top where it says default keyboard, you can switch this to the Gboard. Now there is some really cool AI features in the Samsung keyboard. So even if you do switch this, you may want to go back to the Samsung keyboard from time to time, and you'll see why I say that in part 2 of this series, where we dive into the more hidden settings and slightly more advanced features. Now the last bonus tip for you guys is if you want to stay focused and be less distracted by all the bright colors and flashing lights of social media, I think you'll appreciate this one. So if you pinch the home screen, go to wallpaper and style, here go to the palette section and enable the color palette. What this will do is customize all of the colors within your system UI, and you can choose presets here, and you can choose basic colors or two-tone colors if you prefer. What I really want to show you is this. I'm going to choose my favorite one here, which is that one, and I'm going to apply the palettes to the icons. Now this strips all of the colors out of the apps so that they're less distracting and less eye-catching. That way you can stay focused on the apps that you really should be using to be more productive, as opposed to being stuck on TikTok for a few hours. And I think you'll agree, it looks pretty sweet too. So that's it for the first things to do, beginner's tips, Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 6 video. For part 2, the thumbnail's on screen right now. If you don't see it, check the description below. I appreciate you guys for watching this one, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Don't be late.